Hey there, friends! I'm Dan, and welcome to BioWare Follower. Now, BioWare games generally tend to have pretty darn good soundtracks, and lots of fans are quick to gravitate to a few choice favorites in each game. Thing is, though, it's pretty much always the same group of tracks. Take a look at Mass Effect, for example. Ask any group of fans what their favorite tracks are from the series, and you'll invariably get a barrage of answers singing the praises of tracks like Vigil and Suicide Mission. Now, don't get me wrong, those are both great tracks. They're truly classics and deserve all the praise they get. But just for today, let's let the old favorites rest for a bit to give their friends a chance to shine. We're going to take a look at some of the lesser known and, by extension, lesser appreciated pieces of music from a few of BioWare's flagship series. In the interest of time, I'll limit this to 2 tracks per series. Starting back in 2003 with Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic. First up, Dantooine Outback. Some of you may already be familiar with composer Jeremy Soule, who whips up the soundtracks for the Elder Scrolls series, as well as Guild Wars and maybe a few others you might recognize. What you may not know is that he also did the music for Knights of the Old Republic, and his talent for atmospheric yet easily recognizable pieces is showcased beautifully in the game. Dantooine Outback conveys a sense of mystery that perfectly complements the stoic mysticism of the Jedi Temple you would have just exited when this track begins. There's a sense of calm there, but not complacency. This is a wide-open area of wilderness you're about to explore, and the music encourages you to relax, but still be ready for anything. Not too shabby for less than 2 minutes of music. Next is another atmospheric track, Manaan, Ahto City. Where Dantooine Outback is calm but slightly on edge, Ahto City is just pure relaxation. You travel to what appears to be a utopian city on the water, and the music immediately kicks in to let you know that's exactly what it is. Well, sort of. The complete and utter calm exuded by the music pushes it to 11, making you think to yourself, this place is perfect. Too perfect. It's true that Ahto City is, in fact, a pretty snazzy place to be. But just like any other town, there are plenty of seedy elements hiding just out of sight. That's what this track does. It never outwardly suggests any darkness, but somehow, you still get the feeling that there may be trouble just out of sight. And that's brilliant. Not many pieces could pull that off while still sounding 100% calm and relaxing. Hey, maybe that wasn't even intended. But it's certainly what I took away from this track. Keeping with the Star Wars theme, let's move on to KOTOR's modern counterpart, the Old Republic. The fandom has its favorites in this game's soundtrack, but overall, the music isn't really widely acknowledged in the gaming public. So here are a couple standout tracks to hopefully pique your interest. Our first entry is Alderaan, the Throne. We never saw the planet Alderaan in the Star Wars films. At least not up close. But based on what we knew, it was safe to assume that there was an air of dignity and regality to the place. Well, Lenny Moore, the composer of this track, seems to agree. Almost immediately, you're greeted with copious amounts of harpsichord, competing with sweeping yet precise strings that help to portray the grand scale of everything. It really transports you to the setting, even if you've never played the game. As the piece progresses, the strings take over in a pleasant and slightly powerful waltz feel, eventually moving on to a more forceful section, evoking images of a grand throne room filled with dignitaries discussing world-shaking issues. Rigid, yet sweeping at the same time, this track does plenty to suck you in. So don't be surprised if you find yourself going AFK for a while just to listen. Second for the Old Republic is another planet theme, Balmorra, the Forge. Now this one is pretty widely known among the Old Republic fandom, and once you take a listen, you'll know why. I was debating whether to put this or the game's main theme in the slot, since they have similar sounds. But ultimately, Balmorra won out due to having just so much more involved in it. Composed by Lenny Moore and Jesse Harlan, this world theme may remind you of some of the music from the more recent Star Trek films. There's lots of movement, at least at first, and it's got a pretty exciting feel to it. The choir helps too. The piece then transitions into a much darker and somber tone. The strings slow down and begin to take residence in the lower register, droning on to portray a real sense of dread and evil. As we reach toward the end of the track, The choir joins back in, and the tone adds just the slightest hint of optimism. There's a subtlety in the feeling of hope that makes an appearance just before it ends. And while this may not be everyone's favorite part of the track, it's still able to easily stand on its own. Moving on from Star Wars, let's dive into many people's favorite BioWare series, Dragon Age. Now, since Dragon Age is generally more well-known overall than the previous two games, we're just gonna bundle the entire series together in one entry. People are more familiar with these soundtracks in general, so this streamlines the process. Our first choice comes from Dragon Age 2, Rogue Heart. Now, I know many of you are probably unfamiliar with this one. Know why? Because it plays during the end credits of Dragon Age 2. Be honest, most of you skip them anyway. But just know that you're missing out on something truly beautiful. Sung by Aubrey Ashburn, Rogue Heart is entirely in Elvish with a nice Celtic touch. Starting out with vocals, a bit of guitar, and some synthesized strings, a mournful melody comes across, giving an appropriate cap to the story you just experienced. However, the piece soon adopts some powerful drums, with the guitar taking a more overt role. Suddenly, the tone shifts from somber to, for lack of a better term, epic. The beat begins to drive, a second voice is added, and the vocals change from breathy and subdued to forceful and expressive. At just over 3 minutes long, it's by no means a short song, but even so, with the way it draws you in, it still feels like it's over far too soon. Our second choice from Dragon Age is Lost Elf Theme from Inquisition. Now, this is actually Solas's theme from the Trespasser DLC. And if you know the character, you know you're not exactly in for a jog through Happy Town. There may be some spoilers here, so be warned if you haven't played Inquisition yet. Solas is a tragic character. Personally, I prefer to just call him a douche, but that's just me. This track really conveys that part of him. The tragic part, not the douche part. The lonely cello is a great representation of the man himself. His solitude, his sadness at what he feels he must do, it all comes together in that single melody, and it's hauntingly beautiful. When the rest of the strings join in, layering onto the melody, it almost seems to portray you, the Inquisitor, talking to Solas, trying to understand his point of view. And not just you, but everyone you have at your back. The solitary cello suddenly encountering the full orchestra sets the tone nicely for what we're guessing will be the overarching story of Dragon Age going forward. It's heartbreaking, but determined, which sounds pretty appropriate for the situation. Composer Trevor Morris did a bang-up job bringing the emotion to the table. Finally, we're gonna get into some tracks from the Mass Effect series that deserve some more attention. Whether it be because they're overshadowed by other pieces from the same game, or because the game itself seems to get the short end of the stick, let's take a gander. From Mass Effect 2 Overlord, the Overlord combat theme. To be perfectly honest, there's not a whole lot to this one. It's repetitive, it's loud, it's kind of a one-trick pony. But man, does it do that trick well. You're immediately thrust right into the action, with heavy drums punctuating the entire track. Synthesized low brass comes in periodically for a Hans Zimmer-style bwam, or whatever you call it, on each chord change. It doesn't do much to evoke emotions like most of the other pieces on this list, but composer Christopher Leonard still deserves recognition for what he's done here. The driving percussion and repeating strings go a long way in bringing across the urgency of the piece. This is the kind of track you play in the car when you're late for your kid's karate tournament and need to psych yourself up to get there in time. It gets the blood pumping, that's for sure. Yeah, it seems like kind of a low point compared to the other entries, but hopefully our final choice will make up for it. And here it is. From Mass Effect Andromeda, A Better Beginning. This is what greets you when you turn on the game, and holy crap does it get you in the mood for some grand-scale space action! The minimalist piano intervals and eventual horn at the beginning get you in the right mindset for the setting. A brand new galaxy, completely unknown to you, with infinite possibilities. The Milky Way races are solitary explorers in their new home, and the opening of this piece conveys that idea nicely. Then, as the track progresses, composer John Pisano slowly adds layers. Ambient synthetic strings, a single horn solo, a solid line of bass. It's all added so seamlessly that you almost don't even notice the swelling of the sound. Some electronic pulses and a more natural orchestral sound soon join the party, before the percussion gradually oozes in. This all slowly builds up to a repetition of the theme with a beat that actually sounds quite a bit like the Overlord battle theme heard previously. You start as lonely explorers, and as the game progresses, you grow in numbers and encounter more and more action, ultimately culminating in large-scale battles for survival and more. This piece conveys all that in the span of 4.5 minutes. Now that's impressive, and definitely earns it a spot on our list. And there you have it. That's our short list of pieces we think deserve more attention. So what do you think? Anything you'd like to add? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. So have a good one, and we'll see you next time here on BioWare Follower.